1998, 2006, 2018, and 2022. France has made 4 of the last 7 FIFA World Cup finals. They have the biggest star in world football, Kylian Mbappe.
Il y avait une musique là, au Bali, une musique brésilienne.
Mbappé ensuite, dans sa position favorite, l'attaquant français face à 2 joueurs qui est passé.
And they have had the most players at the previous World Cup. How did France become football's new talent factory? How are they spamming more talent out of thin air than Brazil, Spain, and England? In the heart of the banlieues, which is often described as a troubled suburban community, those with high unemployment, high crime rates, as well as frequently a high proportion of residents of foreign origin, mainly form former French African colonies, and therefore Berbers, Blacks, Portuguese, Spanish, and Arabs. A unique phenomenon is born, and another one, and another one. I could go on all day. Amidst the narrow alleyways and makeshift homes, a breed of extraordinary athletes emerges. In the face of limited resources, they transform rundown corners into their own personal arenas, honing agility and adaptability on the most uneven terrain. Self-taught masters of the game, they learn through trial and error, emulating their idols with unparalleled creativity. But it's not just their skill that sets them apart, but their unbreakable spirit, camaraderie, and community fuel their rise. For these players, football isn't just a game. It's their ticket out of poverty, their chance to provide for their families, and their pursuits of a better future. From the depths of adversity to the pinnacle of success, the boys from the banlieues stand as a testament to the unshakable human spirit. And it's these boys from the banlieues that have propelled France to the kings of football. So, how did they do it? How come the other cities of the world have not produced as many world-class footballers as France? Today we will explore the top 3 reasons why the French became modern football powerhouses. Reason number 1. Concrete football. Concrete football and street football are practically the same. Brazil has street football, France has concrete football. So why does concrete football make players better? Concrete football embraces creativity. There's a quote from Albert Einstein. Creativity is seeing what everyone else has seen and thinking what no one else has thought. This quote sums up concrete football perfectly. If you go to the banlieue of Paris, you will see people pulling off the most absurd pieces of skills. Literally, check it out on Instagram. These skills are things most humans wouldn't even think of, let alone try. These kids are untamed. They get to explore the limits of their creativity without anyone giving them in-depth instructions. The single greatest producer of talent, the street and of football. Exploring technical limits, heads full of dreams and endless possibilities. The ball is always at your feet. Pure joy. 2 hours feels like 2 minutes. Forming a relationship with the ball like no other. Where genius begins. Kids from other nations usually have their first football experience from a coach. This is not a bad thing, but coaches can often limit creativity. At the grassroots level, every weekend up and down, most countries there are coaches shouting at kids. This affects kids as the law of effect tells us actions producing annoying consequences are not learned. For example, if a child is dribbling and is always hearing, "Release it, play simple," this would discourage the player from trying it again, as he was punished. Coaches are often joining in training matches and are dominating the game. So at times it feels like coaches are prioritizing themselves over the players. A lot of coaches do not give players enough detail in sessions. Skills. It develops physical and mental skills too. The contact hours with the ball are non-stop. After school, you either go to your local club to practice with your teammates, and afterward, if kids, competitiveness and bravery Normally, you will see multi-age ranges competing. Nobody wants to disgrace themselves in front of the older guys, but somewhat earn their respect. Also, the games were highly competitive. Losing was not an option, and bragging rights were the best reward available. All of the above make what you'd call constraints-based learning. This is basically the manipulation of certain constraints. Different information is presented to the learner. In turn, the learner is then tasked to find their own solutions to the problems faced in order to meet a goal. Young players learn most when given the freedom to express themselves and their minds are being stimulated and made to think. A coach's job for a youth player is to make himself redundant, therefore helping them to get to a level where they no longer need the coach for technical development. The highest level of sport requires an ability to experiment and recover from failure. A learning environment that continuously focuses on the negative will eventually lead to cautiousness and timidity. Using a positive approach, the coach allows the player to fully embrace and utilize their problem-solving skills. Some solutions may not work immediately, but at least there is a clear indicator that the player knows the process of experimentation and is willing to do it without prompting. Nothing is more impressive on the pitch than a creative player that brings so much joy, not only to their teammates, but also to the spectators who find something that is very different from what they're used to. The beauty of using a person-centered coaching style is that it accounts for the quirks that make us human. You learn to tap into the unique qualities of that player that you wish to turn into a star. Although there are basic standards of performance, they are never rigid and can be adjusted accordingly. The second reason France is the current heavyweights of world football is because of the poverty many face. Now let me explain. Poverty is something no one should experience. But in Paris, poverty is increasing exponentially with constant protests and issues with the public versus the government. Yes, a nation can be rich and still succeed in sports, but poverty gives you an extra edge. Let's take France for example. Young adolescents would spend every last minute playing football in underpasses, abandoned basketball courts, or velodromes, perfecting skills before even beginning to play on grass. The concrete jungle of the suburbs became an endless football pitch for the French youth, looking for an escape from day-to-day life, and several of them blossomed into some of the best players in the world. Due to the lack of education in the poverty-driven areas of France, the emphasis of street soccer, where kids would play in the streets or the parks on their own. It is here, they argue, where they develop their skills, hone their moves, and become better players. It is no surprise they will more contact time on the ball, the ability to be more expressive. In Brazil, the former football capital of the world, a lot of kids left school at young ages, which meant they were just playing football on the street, and therefore had more contact time with the ball compared to their counterparts elsewhere. Hardly anybody tries at anything, but it's not our fault. Let me explain. The average person doesn't know what it means to actually try. Most of us simply have it too good. If you don't come from an impoverished household, becoming a results-oriented being goes against our natural hardwiring. The prototypical person has to develop this paradigm shift to become a predator. This is why growing up in destitute is frequently a driving force behind achievement. They have to perform and attempt. Let's face it, the majority of us aspire to be footballers. But if we didn't make it, no problem. We had university or something else to fall back on. Those who have overcome a challenge need the real outcome, so they may feel somewhat secure in knowing they will never again return to a difficult emotional state. Also, France is arguably the hardest country to become a professional footballer. In England, we have 4 professional leagues. In France, there are 2. In London, you have 17. So if I don't make it at Arsenal, I can't make it at Fulham or Leyton Orient. If I can't make it at PSG, the only other option is Paris FC. Even if I do make it at PSG, they can just sign a player for £200 million in my position. This means that for young Parisians, to get a chance at PSG, they must beat all the competition and compete with PSG's expensive stars they buy every summer. Reason number 3. This one was huge. The Clairefontaine Academy. Clairefontaine is the central nervous system of French football. Clairefontaine is a state-of-the-art and arguably the most celebrated football academy in the world. It is a pioneer too. England and Morocco have since started their own center of excellence with St. George's Park and the Mohammed VI Academy. So what is so special about this center? Clairefontaine is responsible for refining the technical and tactical acumen of Kylian Mbappe. Nicolas Anelka, Thierry Henry, Louis Saha, Matuidi, William Gallas, Mehdi Benatia, Olivier Giroud, Hatem Ben Arfa, and Abu Diaby. There were 50 stars born in France at the 2018 FIFA World Cup. An astounding figure showing France is the new certified talent factory of world football. How did a country like France, which is new to football, perfect the concept of player development? How are they spamming the most exciting, technical, tactical, and physically astute players? It's quite simple. Their philosophy is to produce the best individuals for the benefit of the team. The Clairefontaine was discovered by former French football president Fernand Sastre and former head coach Stéphane Kovacs. Clairefontaine was started in 1988, 10 years prior to their first ever World Cup win. Stéphane Kovacs is the only ever foreigner to coach the French national side. He was inspired by the communist training centers of his homeland, rigid camps where individual skill was obsessively honed for the good of the collective. Boys aged 13 to 15 from the Île-de-France region apply with only 23 selected each season. Players stay throughout the week and then return home to play matches for their local sides on the weekend. The philosophy at Clairefontaine begins with individual technical perfection. Therefore, being able to turn quickly improves your weaker foot and tactical decision-making. The students put through the paces in highly specific and regimented drills before even touching a full-sized pitch. However, French football is less concerned with a specific philosophy like Barcelona La Masia, and is more focused on individual player development. All age groups play in 4-3-3. Jean-Claude Lafargue, the director of the program, told The Telegram in 2018 that French coaches are starting to embrace the philosophy of Clairefontaine. All the coaches of the professional clubs come from Clairefontaine. In France, philosophy is more player-centered than tactics. Their goal is to produce players that can play any system. Let's take Kylian Mbappe, for example. At the 2018 World Cup, he played on the right wing. In the 2019 season, he played as number 9. And for Paris Saint-Germain, he's often on the left wing. Clairefontaine uses the example of an actor. An actor must play the best role possible, but only according to the role he has. If you have an exceptional footballer, you must give him a major role to make the most out of him, and not a small role. The French national side has played very different football over the course of the last 30 years. In the 1998 World Cup triumph, they were very rigid and defensively solid. In the Euro 2000, they came out of their shell a bit more and showed more expression. When compared to the Spanish or Italians, there is no exact stylistic philosophy. Conte is disciplined, goes about his business quietly, and sacrifices himself for his other teammates to get the limelight. France is the greatest modern footballing country with a simple philosophy of producing the best players you can possibly. Do you think France will win the next Euro Championship or FIFA World Cup? Let us know in the comments.